Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of document the kind of awkward liminal state that Samurai Shodown 2 is currently in. So I've kind of worked out, you know, uh, a good pipeline for getting all of the graphics into the game now. And so I have a plan, and I know what I want to do. And so I've kind of started bringing in, the graphics. And so you can see, there, I have like the backwalk animations hooked up. I've, changed, some of the basic input stuff where like now, basically the Z-axis movement's been removed, and if you press up on the your controls, you jump, and all that stuff, and there's really no Z movement. Yeah, but basically though, you can see though, like with the moves, the timing of the animations is all wrong because what I have in there right now is just like placeholder shit. Although it is kind of funny though, just like randomly plugging in some numbers. I mean, it really goes to show like how much of these old games actually was just the graphics. I mean, like basically just getting the graphics in there and aligning them, almost kind of gets you like halfway there. There really is like nothing to this game. I mean, the game is so much simpler than Final Fight. I mean, all I'm doing is basically just like deleting shit. I mean, everything is simpler. But basically, like, so I just want to talk about, kind of like the process here, and some things that I decided, and other things that I'm considering doing. So basically, like the characters are going to be made up of more layers effectively than they were in Final Fight. So it's a little bit more complicated. So basically, like what's going to happen in Samurai Shodown 2 is that instead of only having two sprites, basically one for like the character, and then one for the weapons, the way that it works in this game now is I basically with one layer I draw the clothing, with another layer I draw the skin, and then with another layer I draw the weapons. And the reason that the skins are separated is that because this is a frame rate unlocked game, I wanted to be able to, I wanted to be able to, the timeout's broken. I wanted to be able to, basically set the rage, color, of the character's skin, on a more granular, floating point precision level, and so that basically means that, like as the character's rage bar builds up, the amount that their skin reddens is actually going to increase like very smoothly and on a very granular scale, and so like as their skin turns red, like that turning red is going to be like super subtle and smooth, and so that's going to be really nice. Because basically by splitting up their skin from their clothing, I'm able to programmatically modulate their colors without screwing up the colors of the rest of them. So they're going to be broken up that way. And also it lets you do other kind of interesting things as well, where like on a like per layer here I can choose whether to do like different lighting effects, different pixel shader effects on those, operating on those three layers instead of basically just having like one sprite to deal with. The other thing that's different, compared to Samurai Shodown 2 is that I'm doing more granular, like hit and hurt and body colliders for the characters, and so it's going to have like really precise, tight, hit detection. I mean, really, like the hitboxes and hit detection, even in the original Samurai Shodown 2. I mean, honestly, they kind of suck. There are a lot of cases where like if you pause the game and to look at it, it's like, you know what, like that should have hit and it didn't, or that didn't hit and it should have. There's kind of like a lot of bullshit in the game actually, just because of that. And then just, kind of like the usual cleanup is going on. Like all old games, there are tons of miscellaneous errors in the sprites just because they were working on shitty CRTs and probably didn't even notice that there were, like missing pixels and gaps and other shit. So there's always shit to fix. But yeah. But obviously though, oh yeah, and the other thing that I'm changing to, so the PC version of Final Fight, I mean, was basically a new game. I mean, it essentially was a brand new game. I wasn't really trying to recreate the original game. I had no interest in recreating the original game. But this one though, the goal is to be a lot more authentic. Because I actually like Samurai Shodown 2. And so I'm also changing my animation loading function to basically take Neo Geo frames instead of just raw like floating point numbers, because like for example, when I animate like Hager's punch, for example, like in the Final Fight source code, in its animation, you'll just see something like the first frame is 4.1 and the second frame is 4.2 and the third frame is 3.9, or just shit like that, and that ends up basically just being some amount relative to the refresh rate, that it'll use, for the timing. But basically, what I'm doing in Samurai Shodown 2 is when I load the animations, I'm basically going to say this animation frame should last 3 Neo Geo frames, or it should last 2 Neo Geo frames, or 1 Neo Geo frame, or 5 Neo Geo. I mean, however long, right? And so basically, what I have to do is I just have to go through the game and capture all of the frames, and basically just because I know how many frames it takes if I record the game in MAME or something, and I know how long each frame on a Neo Geo is, 51.9 hertz. You can just do the math on that behind the scenes, and so you can just figure out, it's like, okay, so like for example, this standing weak animation, if the first frame lasts for 2 frames on the Neo Geo, then I know it's basically 59.1 hertz times 2, and then you can basically just work that out on the end of the PC program to make it happen. So that's another change. Yeah, because right now, like it looks bad because like I said, see, that looks like shit because like the frames aren't lasting for the right amount of time, so it looks kind of awkward. The other thing too that I have to change, that's pretty different than Final Fight, is in this game and in one-on-one fighting games in general, there's a lot of like animation linking, like a lot of chained animations. Like for example, if you're ducking and then you do a low attack, like after that attack finishes, you want that low attack to basically link back into the ducking animation. But you can see in this case how the ducking animation actually restarts, from like where the character was standing and then kneeled, which obviously you don't want to happen. So basically, like I need to set up that chaining so that when the like a low attack is done, it actually goes back into like the final dodge frame, as opposed to like kneeling again. So all that kind of shit. But for the most part though, it's pretty simple. I mean, there really isn't that much to it. It's just really tedious work, going through all of the graphics and just deciding what you want to do with them. And rebuilding that, because and I'll say this too. So this is something that's kind of glossed over, and people that aren't really into the technical aspect of this stuff don't pay much attention to and don't realize what's going on. But like, how there was that so-called native PC version of Zelda 3 that came out. Well, it's like if you look at all the news articles and websites and everything, they'll all say, "Oh, somebody ported Zelda 3 to the PC," or you'll see, or Mario 64 and Zelda 64 were ported to the PC, native PC versions. Yeah, they're not really native PC games because if you actually look at the code for those things, they still all essentially simulate the original console's video hardware. And so they're really just pseudo emulators. It's like, yeah, they might have disassembled the CPU code, and they might have, rewritten, that stuff for the computer. But behind the scenes, like the Zelda 3, for example, thing. I mean, it still uses an emulator's implementation of the Super Nintendo's picture processing unit. So that I don't call that a real PC game. See, like Final Fight and this are actual PC games where you really are just saying like, I don't give a shit about how the Neo Geo's video hardware worked. I don't care. I don't want to know. It doesn't matter because what I'm doing is I'm freeing this game's assets from the constraints of that original video hardware. So now it's just generic graphics that like anything could use. And so that is what is actually a shitload of work. Because, yeah, you could always just say, like, oh, yeah, I'm going to disassemble Samurai Showdown 2, and then I'm going to use MAME's, Neo Geo sprite emulation to draw the graphics. Well, that's fucking lazy because you basically didn't actually make a clean version of the game that anybody could just go in and look at and figure out what's going on, because you basically would still have to understand how the Neo Geo's video hardware worked. That isn't what I want. And that's why, like I said, a lot of these things, they call them native PC versions, but they're really not. I mean, most of these games is actually the video stuff. Their CPUs were also slow that there's hardly any fucking logic in the games CPU wise anyway, because they're so goddamn simple. Like almost everything is the graphics. I mean, like I said, if you look at that Zelda, that Zelda 3, the source code for it for the PC, most of the code is just like the fucking Super Nintendo video emulation. It isn't even the goddamn disassembled game. So what does that tell you? That's what I'm saying. I mean, and it is the same thing with the audio. Like they didn't actually, write their own audio engine for it and re-implement the logic and be able to do things like, oh yeah, like I want to do surround sound, or they just basically behind the scenes are using a Sony Super Nintendo sound emulator to play the fucking audio. Like that's what I'm saying. That's not even a PC game, but they call them PC games. And like I said, that I think is a real problem because here's the bottom line. That old console shit, 90% of the code that they wrote for it was just getting audio to play, getting pixels on the screen. Like I said, the CPUs were so goddamn slow, hardly anything was left for actual game logic. So there's like nothing to the actual fucking games. And so, for Final Fight and this, somebody, who has no idea, who couldn't care less about how original CPS1 or Neo Geo hardware looks, somebody who just knows C, C++, they could just look at that source code and go, oh yeah, this is actually human readable. Like, I don't need to understand the original machine's hardware to be able to, like, change this game so that, an animation takes longer or not, or something is different. You can just, make very, obvious and easy changes to the program if you want to tweak something. That's what I want. That's like the actual goal, to actually free these games from the original hardware. See, to me, it kind of defeats the purpose of making like a native C version of these games if you don't completely free them from the constraints of the original hardware. I mean, the bottom line is very few people on the planet are ever going to actually take the time to learn how the Super Nintendo's picture processing unit works. That's just getting, let's get real. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody fucking cares. I mean, very few people relative to the population can even program, let alone are going to waste their time learning some completely useless, obsolete video hardware that doesn't even matter anymore. And so that is kind of my philosophy on this shit. Like I'm completely throwing out anything that had to do with the original hardware that the game ran on. I don't care. Who cares? The Neo Geo hardware fucking sucked. The original Neo Geo hardware can't fucking do this. Show me that quality scaling on the original Neo Geo hardware. Oh yeah, you can't do it. So who fucking cares? The Neo Geo's fucking useless in 2023. And like I said, it's more work. It's a lot more fucking work, and it's very fucking tedious to pull all this shit out of the game and actually hook it all up and decouple it from all that original shitty hardware. But that's what you got to do if you actually want to make like a real PC game, not an emulator basically masquerading as a fucking PC program. Yeah, so like I said, it's gonna be slow. It's gonna be tedious. I mean, it is very tempting. It's very tempting for me to want to reach out and say, hey, if anybody wants to help me, this is, here's some programs, here's the pipeline that you would use to convert some of these graphics and get it in a usable format, and all that. But the thing is, basically, the bottom line is I don't trust anyone else. I mean, the bottom line is I really can't trust anybody else to get it right. I'm just too anal retentive, like I don't know if somebody's gonna fuck it. Like basically, it has to be perfect. Every fucking sprite, every fucking frame has to be perfectly aligned, perfectly captured. I have to make sure that there aren't any oversights. I just can't, I mean, it's just that's just my obsession, and also I'd be very hesitant to drag somebody else into wasting their time on something like, because see the beauty about working on projects like this solo is that I really can just say, like, you know what, if I just wake up one morning and say, you know what, I don't give a shit anymore, I don't care, I don't want to do it, I can just stop and not feel like I wasted anybody's time, or anything like that. Whereas once you drag people in and you start investing other people's time, now you basically have obligations, right? You don't want to waste other people's time and let them down. And that's why for these kind of things, I really do just prefer working on things, solo, even though it exponentially increases how much time this is going to take. I mean, like I said, if you actually distributed this work, if you had like even if you had one person extracting the graphics and getting them in the format that I'm going to use here, for each character, I mean that would literally make this take 15 times less than it's going to take, because you got like 15 characters. But like I said, for the reasons that I just mentioned, this is unfortunately the way it's got to be. But yeah, so in any case, those are just some thoughts, and this is just kind of just capturing. I like capturing the awkward history of in progress games, so that like later we can go back and look at this video and laugh at how shitty it used to look.